I was so passive aggressive, I was so stubborn, I was just immature. Hi guys, welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And if you're not new here, then welcome back and thank you for joining me again. Today I thought I'd do more of like a sit down talking video, talk about my relationship. I just want to say that I respect him a lot, and that's why I don't want to talk about it in depth online. I only had like one person ask about this, but I thought I'd kind of make the video more about how to maintain a healthy relationship with your significant other, because I found it super hard to do that, especially during long distance. My ex was from Ireland, and I'm obviously not from there. I don't have that accent. I'm from Canada. At this point, his visa was ending and we weren't sure what was gonna happen. He wasn't able to apply for another working visa just because of COVID. So we had issues because of that, and I didn't necessarily want to move to Ireland or the UK. We didn't really know each other that long, to be honest. Only knowing someone for a year and then moving in with them is kind of like a really big commitment. Don't really know each other well enough to see if your lifestyle habits kind of go hand in hand. We did live in Banff for like a few months together, and that was fine. Banff is obviously just a little bubble and nothing really makes sense there. I don't feel like it's a place where you can really grow that much once you've hit that peak. When I was there, I was just partying and having fun, making friends. Like, it was all good. It was a good fucking time. But obviously at one point I felt like I wasn't growing there anymore. I wasn't really learning anything new. I didn't really like my job. I thought maybe it's time to go back home. In that setting, you can't really grow up. You're surrounded by a bunch of people who purposely go there to drink and party. We weren't very sensitive to each other in the sense that we were both from different places. I think I could have been more sensitive in the sense that he would have had to move to a different country, and that's a lot of work and scary. We kind of came to terms at the end of the day that this probably wasn't going to work long distance. We were already having issues when we were in the same country, so at this point we didn't really see it moving forward if he had to move to a different continent. I could have moved there easily and he could have moved here easily, but I don't think either of us really were ready for that commitment, and ultimately that led to a lot of toxicity. Our relationship kind of stemmed from like having fun and all that good stuff, and when COVID hit and we couldn't do those things, it kind of really took a toll on our relationship. We did long distance since like December 2019. I felt like I was communicating a lot to him, and sometimes I wouldn't feel like I was being communicated to. All stems from communication and knowing more about each other. In a long distance relationship specifically, you really have to make sacrifices. You have to make a lot of sacrifices. There were times where I wanted to talk on the phone and I felt like he didn't really care for it when that was the only way we could have quality time. And for me, quality time is my biggest love language. To me, the only form of quality time I could get was through a FaceTime or a phone call, and I wasn't able to be provided them. And I did communicate that with him, and sometimes it just didn't work out. And that's not to say that he is a bad person by any means. It's not a lot to say, we just didn't work out. I was sad about it for a little bit. I would prefer to know someone a little bit longer before jumping into a relationship. I feel like our relationship started very quickly. Much rather prefer to be around someone and kind of get to know them before I start dating them. I remember like my first heartbreak was just like, I was in pieces. Like, I was literally listening to Taylor Swift, like crying every day. I had physical pain when things ended. As I've gotten older and kind of already have experienced those feelings, I think I'm a little bit better at controlling them and expressing them, and also reaching out to friends and family and talking about how I feel. I think when you're younger and you have a hard time communicating your feelings, a lot of the times you kind of bottle them up and you only really express them when you're by yourself. Not always a good thing, and it is really hard to communicate. Communication means that you're being vulnerable with a person and actually telling them exactly how you feel. If you're ever going to get in a relationship with someone, make sure you are both open communicators. Enough about my ex and my previous relationship. The communication in any relationship. I've kind of looked into my past relationships and kind of narrowed down things that I may have done that were not so good and could be potentially toxic, and also things that I want in a relationship. I think a lot of people forget that communication is both speaking and listening. When I'm talking to my partner, like, I want to make sure that they're actually listening. I don't want them to be doing other things. But if I'm talking about something more serious and you're just kind of on your phone scrolling. Like, it's just kind of disrespectful. I want to do a better job at listening and also communicating. I know that I'm a pretty strong communicator in the sense that I like to talk a lot. At the end of the day, I just try to be as honest as possible. If they are hurt by that, then I apologize for my tone or anything. Relationships are really, really hard. Another thing is when you don't communicate, it develops a lot of assumptions. That kind of leads to the point of being passive aggressive. I feel like when you don't communicate, you kind of harbor these negative feelings against your partner, which is really disgusting. If you're dating someone or married to someone, you shouldn't have these feelings. Like, you should feel like you're able to fully communicate with this person. So communicating instead of being passive aggressive and being like, oh, why didn't he do this, or why didn't she do this? Just tell them. Like, literally just straight up tell your significant other that you want them to do something. Like, it doesn't have to be mean. Like, you can be very, very straightforward and just tell them exactly, like, oh, like, could you help me take out the garbage? Is your partner really gonna be like, like, if they do that, then get rid of them. Throw them away with the garbage. When you don't communicate, it low-key, not even low-key, it high-key hurts you more than if you were to just say something. It's always worse not saying anything. Go and communicate with them. Don't put in this assumption that they know exactly what they're supposed to be doing. Apologizing. Like, if you are wrong or you did something wrong, just apologize for it. All you have to do is apologize and have the intent to fix it and do better. I don't know why it's so hard for people to apologize for things that they've done. And when you apologize, you're taking ownership and you're admitting that you're wrong and that you did something wrong. When you apologize to someone, it shows that you really care. We don't like people who consistently apologize and never change because it's just really irritating. That makes me have to nag you again and again, and no one likes nagging either. To be honest, I don't think a lot of relationships have open communication. You could have had a solution by talking to your partner, and if your partner was mature enough and respected you, they would take your words into consideration and probably change if they thought it was for the better. I don't think I'm changing like the fundamental basis of who you are as a person. I felt like I suffered from fear of missing out or FOMO. I feel like most of us have experienced it in the sense that our friends go out to the bar or the club and we regret not going out with them, and you see videos or stories or Instagram posts. And so basically I feel like most of us kind of range on a scale for FOMO. So I read this book and it basically talked about how us as humans like to keep our options open. Like, it's very hard for us to only want to select one thing. So it makes it really hard for us to commit to one thing. It kind of makes sense. Like, people are really, really scared that if they pick this option that they lose out somewhere else. We as humans need to get better at decision making and just sticking to a choice rather than constantly fluctuating in our decision making and prolonging the decision and just wasting time. The FOMO literally took over me to the point where I was like, oh, but like, if I'm dating so-and-so, then like, what about everyone else? Like, all the people I can't date. This was when I was like 16, 17, blah, blah, like so on. It's really bad. So don't do what I did. Obviously, we can't control who slides into your DMs, but we can control how we respond to those people and how our responses make our partners feel. I think I was really insensitive when I was younger. A lot of the time I would respond with just something like thank you with a heart, or like make small talk. And to me, that didn't seem like a big deal. Like, I'm a huge extrovert. Like, I love socializing. I love talking to people. I can understand and see my partner's point of view in the sense that it makes them feel like they're not enough. And I've kind of come to the conclusion that I don't want to be like that anymore. I don't want to put my partner in a position that makes them uncomfortable. I think a good way to look at this is that people are always like, oh, the grass is greener on the other side. But the grass is greener where you water it. What I would do all the time, which is bad, was that I would just like respond and then kind of have small conversations. At one point, I felt like external validation from that. And that's something I really have strived to deal with. And I think I am in a place where I'm a lot happier with myself and am able to be proud of myself and whatnot. So I don't really rely on external validation. I only really care about what my close friends and family think about me. It just kind of goes to show as you mature, you care about different things. I guess FOMO, you have options and you're comparing your options and you're constantly like, oh, well, like, is this the best option for me? Comparison is the thief of joy. Regardless if you're comparing two things, two products, or two people, which is even worse, at that time I would compare how one guy would be talking to me versus my own boyfriend. Obviously, when you're in a relationship with someone for a while, you won't be in the honeymoon phase forever, unfortunately, and you'll eventually fall out of that phase and things will feel a lot more natural and kind of subdued and less lustful. And that's not a bad thing. I think it's just something that a lot of people forget happens. A lot of movies and shows depict love as very like passionate and like aggressive. And I'm not saying that you can't have passionate love and whatnot, but it's not like they make it out to be in the movies. Love comes from a place of respect and really deeply caring about someone. Things like The Notebook really are so dramatic about relationships. We compare our love lives to movies. Make sure if you have FOMO or you have a hard time making decisions, I would go back to communicating that with your partner. And if they do really care about you and see it as a positive change for themselves, then they would be more than happy and willing to do that for you. And that's also just like picking and dating someone who actually respects you. And I think you have to pick your battles when you are in a relationship. You can't always be nagging, which is something I'm trying to get better at. Another big thing that I want to touch on is being sensitive to your partner's feelings. I think you should always approach problems as a team rather than individually. Although we're attacking this problem as a team, I think we forget that teams still have individual members. It can be damaging in the sense that no one is the same person. You're both individuals. You both have your pros and you both have your cons. Complement each other in the sense that where you're missing things, they are better at, and vice versa. And I think that's a big thing that people forget, is that they try to become one coherent person, but it can also be really damaging because you lose the sense of who you are in your relationship. And when that happens and you break up and you are a whole different person, you're left very confused. Also, it's your responsibility to remember that you're your own person and that you should be completely independent. Being too dependent on anyone is really bad. Attacking problems as a team and understanding each of your pros and cons is the best method when you're in a relationship. And also, you don't have to always share the same interest or same opinions. I think that people often forget that you can have different opinions, you can have different interests as a couple. Respectfully talk about things and kind of understand each other's point of views and then move forward from there. I don't think it's necessary for you to always agree on everything. I think it's almost unhealthy to agree on everything. You're not one person. Like I said, you're two different people. That you both consider each other's feelings during these problems, because problems aren't fun to deal with and they can be really hard on both partners. But I think when you work together as a team, it provides some comfort for both of you. Sometimes people see sensitivity as a weakness, and my mom used to always be like, you're just so sensitive. I don't think showing sensitivity or being sensitive is a form of weakness. If anything, when you're able to show those emotions to your partner, it really tells us that you're comfortable with them and that you feel safe exposing your feelings in this way that you wouldn't do with anybody else. We forget that a lot of the times when these are people reacting to what we're saying or doing, they wouldn't have felt this way. They wouldn't have been sad. They wouldn't have been angry if it weren't for my actions. And I think we forget that their emotions and their reactions come directly from our actions. I think it's important to reflect and look at what you did and how that impacted them. At the very beginning of the relationship, we're very careful about what we say and how we say things. And once we get to that peak level of being comfortable with this person, where you start roasting each other. If you roast someone and it genuinely hurts their feelings, then you should apologize and you should acknowledge that you probably shouldn't say that again. So I think we have to understand that although we're comfortable with our partner, we shouldn't be neglecting their feelings just because we feel so close to them. Another thing I want to touch on is compromising. Compromising is an easy way for both parties to understand that, okay, I see where you're coming from. I understand why this is important for you. I don't necessarily agree 100%, but we can do this and we can both be somewhat happy rather than one of us being very upset. And honestly, if you're not willing to compromise, you are being selfish. And I don't think anyone's happy in a relationship where they're constantly denied little things that they want. And I don't think you should ever be scared to ask for things if you are unsatisfied with something. I want to talk about red flags and acknowledging them. I think when you're at the beginning of the relationship, you're once again in that fucking honeymoon phase that fucking traps you. Can't see past anything else. You're wearing rose tinted glasses. You can't see anything properly. And so you don't see those red flags properly. I think it's really hard to walk away from red flags when you're having grand old time with buddy boy over there, and you've addressed these red flags and you've addressed the problem, and this person is unwilling to change at the very beginning of the relationship, the very beginning, about a little thing, then that is a red flag in and of itself. And I think you should remove yourself from the situation if you can safely. Obviously, not all situations allow you to leave safely. Respect yourself, you respect your boundaries, you know who you are as a person, and you know what you want. I think you have a responsibility to walk away when there are red flags as well. It's really hard, I know, because I didn't do that. And one of the last things I want to touch on is developing boundaries early on, and they're basically just set there so that your partner can respect you as a person and they know what you expect of them. One of the ones that I really struggled with when I was younger was that I spent an abundance of time with my ex, like an insane amount of time together. It was so unhealthy. I was so dependent, and that's not something I want to revert back to ever. I have gotten a lot more comfortable spending time alone and having my own hobbies. I don't feel the need to constantly be in the presence of someone else. Just make sure that when you're developing these boundaries, that your partner is aware of them and that they respect them. And if they do cross any boundaries, that you make sure that they know, also respecting your partner's boundaries. It's really easy to overstep sometimes, and I think that's why communication is important again. I think that is all I have to really say about relationships at this point. There's obviously a lot more to relationships. I hope you guys like this video. I know it's just like a long ass talking video. Let me know if you want me to talk more about relationships or my experiences with relationships. Thank you guys so much for listening to this. I know it was a really long video, but if you like the video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe.